Isle Royale National Park. A wild and beautiful place. A remote wilderness island where nature reigns supreme. A place where one may visit, but not remain. A national park like no others, remote, untamed. A place where wolves still howl, and the haunting call of the loon echoes across the still waters. A place for those seeking solitude, or those eager for adventure. In the far northwest corner of Lake Superior, within sight of Canada, lies Isle Royale National Park, a wilderness island 45 miles long and at its broadest, 8.5 miles wide. It has no roads, just 165 miles of hiking trails and more than 35 secluded, pristine lakes. Most visitors make the 6-hour trip from Houghton, Michigan to Rock Harbor on the National Park Service's Ranger 3. Other boats leave from different ports on Lake Superior. Some put in at Rock Harbor, others at Wendigo, a port on the southwestern end of the island. There's even seaplane service available. The Voyager, sailing from Grand Portage, Minnesota, circles Isle Royale, picking up and dropping backpackers and canoeists at major trailheads. The Voyager is an excellent way to reach the more remote areas during the height of the busy season. Scattered throughout the island are 36 campgrounds available on a first-come basis. Some are just a site to pitch a tent, while others have screened shelters and boat docks. The only place with a hot shower, beds with sheets, and prepared food is Rock Harbor Lodge, where reservations are recommended. For the sailor or powerboat visitor, there are many safe anchorages or docks for overnight stays. Pets are not allowed on Isle Royale because of diseases they might bring to the wolf population. Only guide dogs with proper health certification are permitted. While many visitors come to backpack, canoe, and camp, Isle Royale's wilderness can also be enjoyed on a less physically demanding basis. In fact, years ago, most visitors came just to rest, relax, and escape the summer heat and pollen-filled air of the Midwest. Throughout the summer, steamships would bring a steady stream of vacationers who stayed in rustic cabins, summer homes, or at one of the resorts on the island. It was these loyal summer visitors who began a movement in the early 1920s to preserve Isle Royale's unspoiled nature by lobbying to have the island designated a national park. In 1931, Congress agreed. From that time on, all private development was halted, and the process of buying the private holdings began. It was not until after the war in 1946 that the park was officially dedicated. The Rock Harbor Guest House is the best preserved reminder of those early times. The lodge has been operating almost continuously since the turn of the century. For visitors who are not interested in backpacking or canoeing, there are nature walks, scenic hikes along Lake Superior, and visits to historic sites such as the old mines. Boat tours are available to a variety of interesting places around the island. Rock Harbor and Wendigo are the main trailheads for backpackers. Both have stores where last-minute supplies and maps can be purchased. If cost and selection are important, visitors are advised to bring what they need with them.
Okay, you can sign there.
If you didn't get the required camping permit on the boat coming over, they are also available at the ranger stations, along with advice on backcountry trails and campgrounds. Experienced hikers advise not to overload your pack. What may seem at first a heavy but manageable weight can soon make the hike an unpleasant chore. Be prepared for weather changes. Even in summer, it can quickly turn wet and cold. Because the water on the island is unsafe to drink, be sure to have a water filter capable of filtering particles as small as 0.4 microns, or carry enough fuel and a portable camp stove so that you can boil all your water. Open fires are only permitted at designated sites. Backpackers should be experienced or travel with backpackers who are. While most trails are well marked and not difficult, Isle Royale is still a wilderness, and help is often not close by. Many backpackers walk sections or all of the popular Greenstone Ridge Trail, which follows the backbone of Isle Royale for 40 miles. Many trails intersect with this main artery. The Greenstone skirts along bogs, passes through dense forests, and climbs to high ground for the broad view and, on a clear day, the distant shore. If your aim is for as true a wilderness experience as possible, then head as far into the interior of the island as time allows, away from the developed zones and busy Lake Superior waterways. Imagine as you hike that more than 4,000 years ago, a man or a woman may have walked along the same path, picking berries just as you might be doing today. Archaeological evidence suggests that prehistoric people had been visiting Isle Royale for thousands of years to hunt and fish and mine the soft copper ore. If you walk the Menang Ridge Trail near Macargo Cove, you will pass many, mostly overgrown, shallow Indian mines that pockmark the slopes of Menang Ridge.
Well, first of all,
from these pits, the Indians hammered out the soft, pure copper ore with rounded stones from the shores of Lake Superior.
Lake Superior has been at several different levels. It has never been at a level that would have put the shoreline on top of what's now the Menang Ridge. So there's no way that water would have been there to work these rocks there. So in order for them to be there, somebody had to haul them up there. On a hammerstone that's newly discovered, you'll find that the outside surface is fairly uniform except at either end, where it's very dimpled, where someone was using it to bang on a rock. So that's how we know that around
the ore was pounded into tools, spear points, fish hooks, awls, knives, and sometimes into ornaments. Copper was occasionally used in trade with other North American tribes. It was the veins of pure copper, seemingly so close to the surface, that brought the first wave of miners to Isle Royale in the 1840s. More than 120 prospectors descended on the island in hopes of striking it rich, but within a few years, most had left disappointed. The remains of Smithwick Mine from that era can still be seen close to Rock Harbor Lodge. There were to be 2 more mining booms during the 1800s that brought in heavy equipment, miners, and high expectations, but these too were doomed to fail. Not only were copper prices unstable, but the isolation and hardships of Isle Royale wore the equipment and the people down. Near Macargo Cove, the remains of a century-old mining railroad can still be visited. With time, most of the evidence from the mining era has been hidden as forests reclaim the land. Trees now blanket Isle Royale from shore to shore, with only the occasional opening on the ridgetops and along boggy bottomlands. On many trails, the hiker walks for hours through a solid tunnel of green, the trees towering overhead. What kind of trees you'll see depends on where you are hiking and how long it has been since the area burned. Soon after a forest fire, fast-growing tree species like aspen and paper birch colonize the burnt area. Years later, these will be replaced by slower-growing species, such as sugar maple or spruce. Along the shore where the cool, moist air flows in from Lake Superior, white spruce and balsam fir dominate the forest. On the ridges in the southwest, where the soils are better and the climate warmer, are stands of sugar maple and yellow birch. Along the wetlands and bogs, paper birch, black spruce, and alder are common. A joy for every hiker is the profusion of wildflowers and berries along the trails. Not only is Isle Royale part of the National Wilderness Preservation System, but it has also been designated by the United Nations as an International Biosphere Reserve. For scientists, Isle Royale is ideal for research. Because it is an island with relatively few outside influences, scientists are able to conduct long-term studies on the interaction of various species and their effect on the habitat. Since 1958, researchers have closely monitored the constantly changing moose and wolf populations, the two largest mammals on the island. Moose first appeared around 1905. The newcomers found an abundant food supply and no wolves, their natural predator. By 1930, the population had soared to more than 3,000, far too many for the amount of food available, and a large number starved. The moose population continued to rise and fall until the winter of 1948, when a band of wolves crossed the ice from Ontario. The wolves helped stabilize the moose herd, and in the process, their own numbers increased. By 1980, there were 50 wolves on Isle Royale. Since then, the wolf numbers have steadily declined. Scientists believe that lack of genetic diversity may be interfering with reproduction. For some, the mystique of Isle Royale is in knowing that wolves still roam free. On rare occasions, a distant howl may echo through the night, but wolves themselves are seldom seen. Wildlife most commonly seen are birds. More than 200 different species visit from spring into the fall. For the hiker, the island offers an up-close and rugged adventure, but the wilderness is also accessible by water. While Isle Royale is surrounded by the often turbulent and hazardous Lake Superior, it's the many inland lakes that offer the canoeist or kayaker an unparalleled wilderness adventure. Isle Royale has 35 lakes and many unnamed ponds. Most lie in the northern half of the island and are small, usually calm and surrounded by forests. But even on the inland lakes, strong winds and choppy waves can come without warning. Wearing life preservers at all times is essential. A spill in the cold waters can quickly sap the strength of the strongest swimmer. The wilderness paddler must have experience. Isle Royale's backcountry is simply too rugged and isolated for the beginner. The physical demands of portages and long days spent paddling cannot be underestimated. If those qualifications of experience and stamina can be met, then adventure awaits exploring the lakes of Isle Royale. Many paddlers bring their boats with them when they arrive. For a small fee, the National Park Service will transport canoes and kayaks to Rock Harbor, the starting point for most wilderness paddle trips. Don't plan your trip with too tight a schedule. Marathons are for the mainland. Many paddlers plan to stay a week or more in the wilderness. Be sure to take along provisions for more days than you actually plan to be away. Unexpected bad weather could force you to stay sheltered for a day or more to wait out a storm. Or, as often happens, once you are out in the wilderness, you might decide to slow down, relax, and enjoy the experience rather than rushing through. Extra food makes that possible. To prevent damage to the wilderness, paddlers must use established campsites. There are a number of campsites along the popular water routes available on a first-come basis. While backpackers use some of the sites, several are accessible only by water. Leaving Rock Harbor, many paddlers head southwest down the narrow, busy waterway between Isle Royale and the outer islands. There are several campgrounds along this stretch. A popular trip crosses the island to Macargo Cove in 5 portages and by paddling through 4 lakes. The trip is about 20 miles long and takes from 2 to 3 days. The first portage is from Mosky Basin to Lake Ritchie, and at 2 miles is the longest. The other portages vary from difficult to easy. Plan not to rush the trip through these wonderful wilderness lakes, as there is so much to see and wonder about. Imagine, as you paddle, that not so long ago, geologically speaking, a great glacier, thousands of feet thick, was slowly grinding and gouging its way southward, carving out the land that eventually would become the very lake where you are now paddling. When the last of these glaciers melted about 10,000 years ago, the ridge and valley shape of Isle Royale had been cast. The worn, rounded rock found high on the ridgetops bears witness to the immense forces that formed this rocky archipelago. If Isle Royale is about anything, it's about wilderness, and one of the most soul-satisfying ways to connect with its wilderness is on a quiet lake. That connecting moment, that revelation, may come upon seeing a moose in the early morning light feeding along the shore. Or it may come at twilight after a long day's paddle, and the haunting, mournful call of a loon echoes across the water, the sound resonating among the dark trees. For some, the moment of connection comes without prompting. It comes just because it is so still and the stars are so close. Once you have arrived at McCargo Cove, you can have a ferry pick you up, or you can continue the lake circuit to Rock Harbor. The return trip to Rock Harbor is 13.5 miles long, has 5 portages, and should take 2 or 3 days. Though this route is not as secluded as the inland lakes, it may be one of the most scenic and exciting of Isle Royale's water routes. The Five Fingers area has rugged, dramatic coastlines and is filled with numerous small islands waiting to be explored. For the equipped and experienced sea kayaker, the 45-mile trip along the southern coast from Rock Harbor to Wendigo is an exciting challenge. Since there are few campsites along the way, a special permit is required for off-site camping. For those under sail or power, the island offers many secluded coves to explore and miles of dramatic coastal scenery to admire. Navigating charts are a must, as the waters are notorious for submerged rocky reefs. And sailor be warned, Lake Superior can quickly, and with little warning, turn from calm to tumultuous. There are many safe anchorages around this island, either to escape the rough seas or to spend the night. Good places from which to set out and explore Isle Royale by boat. The Edison Fishery, listed on the National Registry of Historic Places, is across the bay from the Daisy Farm campground. Pete Edison left the island in 1978 after 50 years of commercially fishing the waters around Isle Royale. His hand-knotted gill nets and fishing equipment are preserved by the Park Service, just as if he would return one day to resume his craft. Commercial fishing had been a vital industry on Isle Royale since the early 1800s. Toward the end of the 19th century, thousands of tons of fish were caught each year, salted down, and shipped in barrels to the mainland. There were fishing villages and camps scattered throughout the island. It was a booming business. During the early 1920s, when Pete Edison arrived, one of the many Scandinavians who would fish these waters, more than 100 fishermen were supporting their families. During the 1930s, Isle Royale's fishing industry slowly began to collapse. Improved fishing techniques and better equipment had meant bigger catches, but also lower prices. One by one, the island's fishermen threw in the towel, returning to the mainland for an easier, less risky life. Today, the Edison fishery is an example of an industry that thrived on Isle Royale for more than 150 years. From Edison Fishery, it's a short walk to the Rock Harbor Lighthouse, built in 1855, the first lighthouse on Isle Royale. The handsome structure guided boats to the entrance and safe passage into Rock Harbor during the mining era. But Rock Harbor Lighthouse shone for only 2 brief periods during the 1800s and was last lit in 1879. Another of the lighthouses within the bounds of the park is on Passage Island, 3 miles northeast of the main island. The Park Service offers tours of the island, which leave from Rock Harbor. The Passage Island Lighthouse was built of sandstone hauled from Jacobsville on the mainland. It was first lit in 1882, and it has helped guide ships carrying ore and grain between Canada and the United States ever since. But despite the lighthouse, Ships still have run aground and sunk as they tried to negotiate the rocky waters between Blake Point and Passage Island in bad weather. The Emperor, the Chester A. Congdon, and the Monarch still lie beneath the waters off Blake Point. The Rock of Ages lighthouse on the western end of Isle Royale warned ships sailing between Duluth, Minnesota and Thunder Bay, Canada, of the dangerous reef that claimed the Cox, the Chisholm, and the Cumberland. Beginning in 1902, the America had been the primary reliable link to the mainland, bringing in mail, supplies, tourists, and returning with fish. In 1928, the ship struck a reef off the southwestern corner of Isle Royale. Today, a buoy marks where the sunken America rests. In all, 10 major shipwrecks have been located around Isle Royale, providing unequal diving opportunities to experienced divers. All divers must first register with a park ranger. An experienced shipwreck diver should be part of each diving team. Extra precautions should be taken because even in summer, Lake Superior is dangerously cold. The parade of miners, developers, and exploiters who came with their dreams of taming Isle Royale has ended. The island's isolation and ruggedness proved too strong to overcome. Today, Isle Royale is wilderness preserved, a place, in the words of the Wilderness Act of 1964, where man himself is a visitor who does not remain. Come, enjoy, but please tread lightly on the land.